there's a great judge in New York, United States District Court judge in Manhattan named Jed Rakoff. So they keep bringing these cases to him from the SEC saying, hey, we worked really hard and it turns out we've got fraud at whether it was Bank of America earlier and now it's Citigroup, and we reached a settlement. Now, in this settlement, the bank does not agree that they have done anything wrong. And we have reached a settlement in absolute secret, and we won't tell you the proof that we have against them or why they are in this kind of trouble in the first place. Oh, and by the way, these banks have over and over again done the same exact thing and promised, and as they are promising in this plea deal, in this case with Citigroup, they'll never do it again. Oh, man, we hear you. Oh, there's allegations of fraud. Oh, we are just outraged. And we feel horrible about it. I say, my bad, dog, right? They come into Rakoff and they say, but the SEC, the government agency in charge here, has got a settlement. So Judge Rakoff, just go ahead and sign off on it. And Rakoff says, no deal. I'm not going to do it. Now, why? First of all, it's a $285 million settlement. Now, it's about a case where Citigroup told their clients, their customers, hey, you know what? These are some fantastic mortgages we have for you guys, okay? Go ahead and buy these mortgages. And at the same time, they went out and laid down hundreds of millions of dollars worth of bets against those mortgages. There's no question about it. I mean, that's textbook fraud, where they go, oh, buy this stuff, it's really great. Meanwhile, they're betting to make sure that that stuff fails, okay? One of the things that they lied about, apparently, was that they said, oh, it's an independent group that has put together this mortgage package. Nonsense. It was Citigroup who put it together, and they put it together so that it would fail, so that they would make money off of selling it to their customers, and then they would make a second round of money when they bet against those mortgages. It's hideous, right? So how large was that mortgage fund? It was $1 billion fund. How much did their customers lose? $700 million. Now, what Rakoff says is, look, if I sign off on this, first of all, there's no transparency, so we don't even know what we're punishing them for. Second of all, they never admit fault, which is outrageous. Did they do it or did they not do it? If you're going to fine them $285 million, I need them to say in open court, yes, we did it. We were fraudulent, okay? Third of all, and this is the most important point, he's like, look, it's going to be a cost of doing business. They're just going to say, all right, next time, every time the SEC lets us just pay a small fine. In fact, Hunter at Daily Kos, he's a blogger, made a great point about this. It's kind of like a small tax on their transactions, right? They think, well, if I'm going to make $700 million or I'm going to make however much they make off these transactions, and then I have to pay a portion of it in a fine, well, why wouldn't I do it? I pay a certain portion of it, but I keep the much larger portion. And keep this in mind. That's just on the stuff they get caught on. If there's one thing they got caught on, there's probably 10 other things they didn't get caught on. So when you add it all together, they make a tremendous amount of money, and they pay a tiny little fine. They don't even admit guilt, and they move on with their life. And Rakoff said, end of this. I'm not having it anymore. Let me share with you some of his great quotes from this decision. He said, finally, in any case like this that touches on the transparency of financial markets, whose gyrations have so depressed our economy and debilitated our lives, there is an overriding public interest in knowing the truth. Now, that is exactly right, of course. But the SEC comically claims, no, the public doesn't have to know the truth. We can keep the details of this secret and just trust us that we've done a job of getting to a fair and reasonable conclusion, and we'll just keep it all behind closed doors. Rakoff continues, and look at the loaded language here, and he's doing it on purpose. In much of the world, propaganda reigns, and truth is confined to secretive, fearful whispers. Even in our nation, apologists for suppressing or obscuring the truth may always be found. But the SEC, of all agencies, has a duty inherent in its statutory mission to see that the truth emerges. So he says, look, we're not a banana republic. We're not a third world country. I'm not going to let you come in here and say, oh, don't worry, I struck a secret deal with my banking friends. By the way, a lot of those guys at the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, then later get hired by those same big banks. To give you a sense of how bad it is, they have struck 51 deals. New York Times did an analysis of this, where the banks promised, oh, we'll never do the fraud again. Okay? And let me give you the exact numbers as to how that turned out. And that involved 19 different companies that have never breached the fraud laws again. And guess what happened? In those 51 instances with the 19 banks, they breached the fraud cases again. Now, look, again, Hunter at Daily Kos makes a very good point. He says, if they were just a normal human being who was a defendant, in California, there's 3 strikes law. Citigroup has already said twice over before this case that they would never do that fraud again, right? And here it is, their 3rd strike. So if it's a human being, he'd get 25 years of life. Why doesn't Citigroup get 25 years of life? Why doesn't Citigroup get shut down? No, because their corporations are not just people, they're super people. They get protected by the SEC, they get protected by the laws and limited liability, and they get all the wonderful free speech rights of human beings. They have special rights. And Rakoff said, I've had enough. They don't get to do it this time. I reject this deal, go back. Now, Rakoff has done this before with Bank of America, and you know what happened in that case? The SEC had said, oh, well, look, we busted up Merrill Lynch, and we got him good. Merrill Lynch wound up becoming a part of Bank of America and later, and we're fining him $33 million. Rakoff said, that's nonsense. I want to see the evidence. And then once the SEC had to present him some evidence, they're like, yeah, this is kind of embarrassing. This fraud is much worse than we originally told you. So the new fine is $150 million. Do you understand? If it wasn't for Rakoff, they would only paid $33 million. Because of Rakoff, they paid $150 million. That comes back to us, the taxpayer. In other words, the SEC doesn't want to do their job because they're bought off by these guys. And Rakoff is so far one of the few, if not the only judge who has stood up to them and is actually fighting for the taxpayer.